What's up, everybody? Big Herc 916, getting down fresh out. You know, we do it over here. I'm here with Nicholas Rosenberg, LA attorney, LA native, attorney Rosenberg, and he represents a lot of local Los Angeles rappers, hip hop artists, guys who are in the streets, gang members out here, just hitters in the LA community. And Mr. Rosenberg, I mean, you know, you've seen a lot of street, gangs and street gang members and rappers out here dealing with various cases. What are some of the more interesting, cases you dealt with? I know you mentioned Crip Mac. You know, what's going on with his case?
Right. So I did Crip Mac's state case. A lot of this is public record. He was already on probation, and they did a search. They found a firearm on him. He had a prior felony, so he's charged with felon in possession of a firearm. Felon in possession of a firearm above 1 year is mandatory state prison. So it's not one of these realignment, you serve your time in county jail, 16 months, 2 years, 3-year max. And we were trying to get him probation. And this is a case, by the way, I did pro bono because I wanted to try to give back, help the homie out. Crip Mac, I love Crip Mac. Shout out to Crip. And he's just such an entertaining guy. He's got a good heart, and he's just a great guy. He cheers me up. So when he pulls up at the office, you know, the man cheers me up. And I was able to get him a sentence where we had to do low term, so he ended up doing about 5 months, and then when he got out, unfortunately, what happened to him is there was another firearm, and you know, we talked about the feds wanting to send messages to people, deterrence, so they federalized that arrest. So now he's currently in federal custody. I posted this recently, a couple months ago. So he has entered a plea to a federal firearm related offense. And sentencing comes up in June. So we don't know exactly what will happen for him.
Yeah, because ex-felon in possession of a firearm in the feds, isn't it 5 years?
I think it's a 5-year minimum.
Yeah. And I seen that where they came out of court and they arrested him, which, you know, a lot of times feds, they pick up, even though, you know, your state case, they state drop, they pick it up because it does, you know, it's kind of like sending a message, and it's, you know, the prosecutor, it gives them kudos for that. You know, they like, hey, I prosecuted this guy, and it kind of adds to their resume. So, yeah, that was interesting. I've seen that, and I think because he's a public social media person, this was one of the reasons why they picked that up.
Yeah, so I actually used to sponsor Crip Mac and China Mac's podcast. They had Mac Ventures, so they would go to various places. So the idea was Crip Mac is in the hood, but he's never been here, or he's never experienced this, right? So China Mac would take him into experiences that he never had. You know, they got kicked out of the Rams game. They went to the Dodger game. So I was a proud sponsor of that show to try to help get them going and do what they needed to do and support those guys.
What happened with that relationship? Because I heard that fell apart.
Right. I've heard that. I have heard that. I don't. So currently, China Mac was supporting Crip Mac's case for a while, and you know, you hear a lot of rumors online. I don't excuse me, as they say, I don't know if I can speak on it, but you know, Lupe is one of his main supporters, Lupe Gotti, and I'm still good with Lupe. Shout out to Lupe, and she definitely supports C-Mac.
Okay, yeah, because I seen I didn't watch the full video, but I seen, like, you know, they did a trailer, and then they were supposed to be doing something, and then the relationship, and then he got locked up, and then everything kind of took a turn after that. With a lot of these, you know, hip hop artists and stuff, man, and even these, you know, It would seem at this point you'd be smart enough to not. I mean, gun charges. I mean, legally get somebody who can carry a gun, or legally, if you have no felony, go get a gun permit. I mean, you're already you're a prime candidate for a concealed carry because you're in entertainment.
Sure.
And so, if you don't have a felony, getting your permit should be something somebody should be able to walk you through the process. Have you seen more guys do this, or are these guys just thinking like it's still just let me just go pick up a gun and put it in my pocket?
Well, so I get calls. A lot of my clients, again, are in music. They're rappers. They're producers. And, you know, for the Chicano rappers, African-American rappers, it's a competitive space. So there are beefs and there are these things. So I have clients say, Rosenberg, I'm an influencer. I can't be out there naked. So I agree with you. Let's get the CCW.
Yeah.
And then you won't have the issues. But my rappers, they have guns. And so they get charged with those guns. I did a case for Money Sign Suede. And Money Sign Suede had the same MO. He had firearms. He ended up with 3 cases. And, excuse me, when he started out, he already had a strike. So he was a convicted felon. Now, if he had gotten his CCW, then he would not have faced those charges.
Yeah, and for the guys out there who haven't done their homework, I mean, look, if you have a prior or something from juvenile, you can go back and get that expunged, and then, like you said, your record be clean. Then you can go apply. It would only make sense to me, or these guys, who's ever in their camp, would take, if this guy's making money, why wouldn't you protect your investment? It only makes more sense to me. So I just don't get it. And maybe it's because I'm just like, you know, from outside looking in. But in this day and age, knowing what we know, and even if I would have known this when I was younger, I would have never have touched a gun without getting a permit. And it only makes sense that if there's somebody in your family or somebody, you can legally go. It's not that hard. Go fill out a gun permit, you know, and at that point, if you are involved in that and you can show where you could possibly have threats against your life, you can get that CCW. So it just doesn't add up to me, some of these guys, you know.
Well, I mean, some of the guys are young, they're youngsters, right? We know from brain research that the adult brain is still developing until the age of 25. So when you're 18 and your record, your streams are popping, you may not say, hey, what I should do is go down to LAPD, Central Station, ask for the paperwork, fill it out, do what I need to do. But again, some of this is relatively recent because the Supreme Court has issued decisions that have said you can't put conditions on these permits, except for extreme cases. So the idea of everyone going down and getting a CCW, that's relatively new.
Now, are you seeing with the rappers that today, I mean, because even back in the day, there were certain guys who were smart enough, but are you seeing these guys today at least have people in their camp who are looking at it from a more business perspective? Because I know, you know, gangs, you know, you got a lot of gang elements in there, and you do have, you know, guys who want the street elements, but because of the money's gotten, you know, to a different level, you would think that you would have like advisors who would see things differently to where like, hey, you don't have to do it like this, we could do it like this, which will allow you more longevity. Have you seen a shift like that in some of these guys you represented where they have people that are smarter in their camp, or these guys really, are they actually dumber?
Well, so the answer is, you know, it goes back to who needs to come hire Rosenberg, right? It's someone who's been arrested, where a case is filed, and then they have court dates. So for someone who's operating with a big label, they're signed, they have their own CCW, they don't need Rosenberg. So the folks I see are going to be people who have been criminalized.
Okay, got you. So you know, you don't have do you have like a contingency of people who have thought ahead of time and put you on retainer? Like, you know how the mob used to do? Hey, have this guy, anything happens, don't say, call him. Do you have a lot of people like who have gotten smart like that in that world, or do most of these people wait till it's too late? Then Rosenberg, help me.
I think I see more of the latter. But again, when I do my podcasts, I try to make some of it educational. For example, I got you the shirt. I don't know if you can see the shirt, but for the youngsters out there, if you're being interviewed by police, here's what we say. I have no statement. I want my lawyer. And what that does, it ends the interview right then and there. You're asserting your Fifth Amendment right. Another thing I want the youngsters to know out there is I have a saying, don't talk in the tank. And what that means is when you're at the police station and the detectives are accusing you of a murder, they put you back in the holding cell with an undercover cop or an informant, and they ask you, what do they have? And they say, where'd you get the gun? And then you start telling them, yeah, fool, this dude pulled up on me. I know that fool. I have beef with him. I shot first. Now that is significant evidence in a murder case. So for this one, if you're 18 and you don't have prior convictions, I do say explore getting a CCW. But remember, you got to do the basic safety class, enhanced classes, be a responsible firearm owner. In LA, I would estimate that at night, I'd say 50% of people driving on the road, especially South LA, they have a gun in the car. I mean, that's from Rosenberg's estimate. Trust me. And you're going to get pulled over for tints. You're going to get pulled over for tints. You're going to get pulled over for no front license plate. And if there's a gun in the car, then you've got a case.
Yeah.
And even if you don't have a prior, because you have a firearm in the console and it should be locked up in the trunk unarmed, not loaded, then that's another gun charge. And I get those almost every day.
And for those out there who don't know, typically, what is the gateway charge for most people who start off their criminal career? I would say a gun charge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do see that. I also see people who have juvenile robberies and burglaries. And if you're 16 at the time of the commission of the offense, that can now become an adult strike. So I'll see people that say, Rosenberg, I didn't get a strike, bro. I wouldn't have signed if it's a strike. And then we look at the record and there is a strike. But after that, sort of the entry level charge, I think a gun charge is definitely a charge that I see with great frequency.
Yeah, because it used to be drugs, but they just decriminalized a lot of the drugs. So now it's the gun, because the gun accessibility with the 3D printing and all this stuff. Like I guess these kids are getting these guns. You can get them pretty readily. Another thing I want to mention too, and I've talked about this on another a video, is that the trick bag, right? And the trick bag is that they tricked a lot of people into almost like a psychological mind game where it's not that bad when you're stealing what they consider under $950 stealing. Where now you're committing crime, which these kids typically, if you stole a candy bar, you went to jail, you wouldn't be doing it. You'd be maybe studying, maybe BMXing, riding a skateboard, doing something else. But now the conditioning for people, and they're thinking it's innocent, in my opinion, because I've been to juvenile hall, I've seen that, where by doing that, it creates almost like, well, it's not that bad, so you go on to something bigger. And have you seen a click up as far as in criminal activity because of like just the mindset? Because to me, like once you've seen that, like I've seen like what's taking place in the Bay Area. I used to live in San Francisco, hang out in Oakland. I used to be all over there. But when you have people where it's just like there is no, like people think, wow, this is just normal behavior, then the criminal element just goes higher. Then people start doing things that's even more aggressive. Have you noticed that in like just the cases you represent, where these people normally would think like, man, this kid should have been doing something else, or these kids like kind of got to where they thinking this is cool, and that's really not their character?
Well, so, I mean, the answer is I don't do that many misdemeanors. Just to let you know, there's a misdemeanor they came up with, organized retail theft, and that's, when you see a bunch of folks swarming. I've done rioting and routing where we see the similar behavior. In a way, what we're really talking about are theories of punishment and deterrence. So if people believe there are no consequences, then they're more likely to engage in the behavior. So I had a case, I was in Norwalk Court doing an preliminary hearing setting, we call it EDP, early disposition, and there was a guy, and he was on the news. So the guy was arrested for an auto theft. He was released OR on his own recognizance, meaning he didn't have to pay any money. And then he went on to commit 16 more auto thefts. So some people have said that that's why we need the cash bail, because he should have been incapacitated in jail. And if he had posted cash bail, he might have thought twice about it. So, it's very interesting. In my opinion, I think what you're seeing with the smash and grabs and the robberies and all the retail theft, I think you're seeing that coming out of the pandemic. Frustration about being kind of locked down, and I think that there's economic reasons why people are doing that, and to some extent, people don't feel that there will be consequences.
Yeah. It seems like a lot of these youngsters, especially ones that think, I guess it's cool, where, they get, because now they have these chat groups and they're like, hey, we're all going to be in Long Beach, and they get down and ready to hit the mall, and the police get word and they show up. But you're getting involved in these like mob mentality type behaviors. And it just seems like, for a lot of the people, like you said, it's more of a psychological thing. I guess it has people who maybe normally wouldn't entertain criminal activity, but because they're not really criminals, but they're doing it now because they think it's fun, and then it goes to other stuff. And then on the instance where you're saying like the guy who got out and committed 16 more, it's like this guy's a sociopath. I mean, obviously he thinks like, there's no consequence. And then you have situations like with the guy, I seen in Granada Hills, who the guys tried to rob him. He killed one of the guys, but the guy had just got out in September for a murder. He just beat a murder, but this guy's house robbing again. But he goes to Granada Hills thinking, I can go rob some rich people out here. And he ran into an ex-Navy SEAL who shot and killed his ass. So, I don't know. Like I said, I feel like some people deserve the, on a level where, the guy should have the opportunity to be able to fight his case from the street. But then some of these guys, it's like, for them, they're not really even, I'm just going to get out here and do all I can, which, and it's, when you're representing them, they're just who they are. But like that guy, obviously, he's like, well, shit, I'm just going to get back into some shit, So it's kind of interesting. And I don't know what, as far as that, at that level, would be something that kind of perpetuated that behavior, if that was something that the guy was already on before he got away with the murder,
Well, it's interesting. A lot of people talk about our relatively new district attorney, George Gascon, and the Orange County district attorney, the elected district attorney, Todd Spitzer, has taken out billboard ads throughout Los Angeles that say, in Orange County, crime does not pay.
I've seen that.
And it says, if you steal, you will be prosecuted. So, again, I don't know if that's going to be a deterrent, but I find it interesting that prosecutors are warning people not to come into my jurisdiction because we will prosecute you.
Yeah. To add to that, because I lived in Orange County, it used to be like you knew not to go down, just like in Beverly Hills, you knew not to cross over the 90 or 105 to go mess around. You stayed over it in 105, the one you knew not to go over there because you get pulled over, which people said it's harassment, but you knew like certain areas, and so looking at that and I was talking with a friend of mine, and he said, man, even him, he's an LA dude, he's like, man, I noticed guys here from other cities with the accent and dreadlocks and looking different. They're out here in California, man. It look like these guys ain't from around here, but they're like plotting and planning. Which, guys, some of them go to restaurants, different car events, they look for somebody and they're thinking, well, man, they Apple tag their car. And, I've heard stories, guys, getting home and 5 dudes show up and rob them or beat them up, tie them up. And because, people feel it's so easy where if a person feels like, and I'm not saying, but people feel like, hey, man, you go out there, shit, man, you're going to get out anyways and just don't show up for court. Mm-hmm. So it's like I've heard from even street guys who have noticed a shift in the demographic of people coming out who aren't local guys who have basically come out here and feel like this is like a cakewalk, and we can get away with whatever. So it's kind of interesting. And in California, it kind of didn't really have that vibe, but now you see like where literally crews are coming out here to put in work and leave,
Well, what law enforcement has been saying is that there are organized theft rings from South America who are basically criminal tourism. They're going to come into LA, they're going to hit 10 homes, and then they're just going to leave.
Yeah.
So that's what...
Yeah.
That's a narrative that I hear from law enforcement.
Well, I've heard the same things. I know some guys who are ex-law enforcement and work, and they're saying like, yeah, that they're organized. They come out here and they kind of got it down to where, because they had a crew, I guess, in parts of Arizona where they call them the dinner time bandits. Mm-hmm. Professionals, look like regular people, but these people know dinner time. They know how, because they were actually saying that you should start hardwiring your security equipment because they can jam your basically your Wi-Fi, and while you're at dinner, hit your house and be out of there, and you'll never know, and people are getting hit. And the thing about like what people, and I'm an ex-criminal, so I'm saying it just as far as people who want to be, everybody wants to be safe. You don't want to go home and find somebody came in your house and you didn't, and you weren't there, you feel violated. But is that a lot of these people, they look for easy targets, and people who at this level where they feel like, hey man, I can come in here and hit these houses. And most of these people have been in such a, it used to be where you drive to certain neighborhood, this certain neighborhood is under, we have, what they call it, neighborhood watch. Mm-hmm. And, there might be a cop drive by, and if you're over there taking sightseeing, man, you got to keep going. It used to be that type of vibe, but now, like, people feel like, hey, well, these houses are nice. We can go over here, and, it's open season. We jam all the stuff, go in there and get up out of there. So it's like, it's I don't know, it seems like it's been a change in just the vibe of what the criminality thinks, how far they can push it, and like you said, in Orange County, I've seen that, and then I've seen where there's been an increase in like Irvine and some of the cities where you didn't really used to have those type of crimes. Newport Beach, that guy shot the dude who tried to break in his house, and some of these are daytime robberies, which is pretty crazy to me because it's like, wow, man, people are broad, daytime. It's like dudes aren't just fuck it, I'll go to your house during the day and rob you.
Well, the crimes, so I've done podcasts where I talk about the crime du jour. So these are crimes that kind of become very popular. Law enforcement sees a bunch of them. And right now, everyone's got an AR-15. So it's not even the P80, Polymer 80, Ghost Gun 9mm. I mean, there's a lot of AR-15s out there. And the other crime du jour is obviously fentanyl, not just fentanyl being laced with, or methamphetamine, cocaine, even heroin having fentanyl, but it's the perks, right? The M30s. So the M30s, I will tell you, they're everywhere. I see a lot of cases, people are getting pulled over, they've got 200 M30s in the car, they've got a firearm. So, I mean, that's what I see. Those are crime du jours that I see right now.
And just to add to that, are they call those the blues, right?
Yeah, the blue
Okay.
M30s.
So I was just talking with somebody who just got out of state prison in Arizona, and they're saying the blues are, majority of people are in there for blues. But they saying what the new thing there is, it's like a lot of these so-called square young girls, never been in trouble, glasses, nerdy, are getting busted for transporting. So they're getting tricked into transporting. Here's 30 grand, transport these, and they're catching cases. But this is the thing about a person who's never been in the streets, a square. You're a giveaway. And what I tell these people, like, you thinking you're going to get something, you're a giveaway. You might do it once or twice, but then the big loads over here, hey, there's a blue Civic plate number, blah blah blah, and they pull that over. You're going down for these people. You're not part of their clique. You're a mule, but you're also a decoy. And so there is, I guess, a big amount for those, they're catching these cases because they're thinking, hey, 20,000, 30,000, 10,000, I just got to drive from here to here, and I'm, no record. And this particular female that I just interviewed, she said, it's a lot of females, never been in trouble, no records, and they're all getting busted for transporting the blues. Mm-hmm. So that's a big thing out there like now where I don't even know what a blue is. She told me, I'm like, damn, I never even seen one of those. But
right,
that's the big thing.
And a lot of these are manufactured with a pill press. We can speak on it, but there is something that I see in cases called the drug courier profile. And we see this in the Fed. So the drug courier profile is a narcotics special agent detective talking about what they're looking for. So at one point, it was like a 90s Honda, driving the speed limit, clean-cut Latino male, driving on certain freeway corridors. And they literally will put that in as evidence. So what you're telling me is that there's a new drug courier profile of a young female, kind of clean-cut, not very flashy, nondescript car, looks like a good girl, but lo and behold, she's got 10,000 blues in a secret compartment.
Yeah, and I guess that was the majority of the prison. Mm-hmm. So that's a big thing. Yeah, so that was kind of surprising having that conversation. I'm like, whoa, and it goes to show, like I said, these are, come from good family, maybe, nobody's been in trouble, but the lure, like, wow, I can make that much money just doing this. And it seems real easy, real simple, until it's not. You get pulled over and start asking you a bunch of questions, and then you got to get out the car, and then, here comes the drug dog. So, just for a lot of these females who think like, they can get away with everything, because like you said, a lot of people, that's what they used to use for a lot of these girls back in the day. You find, and I'll just say, you find a little square white girl, she's going over here, hey, put this in your bag, blah, 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 and, oh, I'll make a little bit of money, think, hey, blah, 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 and now that's kind of, they're hip to that, so, I just found that pretty interesting, that whole makeup and then how big that is, because like you said, those blues are everywhere.
Yeah. So I actually believe I did one of the first fentanyl cases from LAPD. So my client was pulled over. I want to say he had a kilo. It's a brick like this, it's kind of off-white, beige. But they charged him with possession for sale of heroin. And they did an opiate screening, but they literally didn't know it was fentanyl.
That stuff was, ooh.
So that was a lot. So it was interesting, they had, it was at a central station, it went to CCB. So the undercover narcotics cop, was dressed up like a homeless chick in Skid Row. So she's the one that came down to the station and booked him. So this was probably 2013.
And fentanyl is a lot more toxic. I mean, isn't that if you breathe it in, like you can almost overdose? So it's a lot more. It's a lot stronger than heroin.
Right. So gram for gram, it's, I want to say 800 times more potent.
God.
So that means a very small amount
800 times
can have an impact.
God, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, because I just seen where somebody made a traffic stop one time and the officer didn't know what it was and they ingested it and damn near killed him, like
Right.
instantly. Yeah. Wow. Hey, man, there you have it. Big Herc 916, Nicholas Rosenberg, fresh out.